Hey there, it's Miss Smith, and I just wanted to do a quick video on two things that I noticed when I corrected your quizzes. Number one, I would like to thank all of you who did it. Thank you so much. And number two, there are some common questions I got, and so I just wanted to go over them. I'm going to do one of each type of question. So the first one is how to graph and what that should look like. So a couple things. If I tell you to graph y equals 5 sine, let's call it pi x over 3 plus 2. So you should immediately find out, again, let's say you don't want to write out, the questions did say to write out like what the amplitude is. So the amplitude is 5. The midline is 2. And then the range is always the midline plus or minus whatever your A value is. So in that case, it's 2 plus or minus 5. So if I subtract that, I get negative 3. And if I add it, I get 7. So when you graph it, that's what tells you what your scale sort of needs to go to. So if I have to go to negative 3 to 7, midline's at 2. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3. So I need my midline at 2. Midline at 2. And then I know it's going to end up at negative 3. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up at 7. And again, it doesn't have to be exact when you're sketching it, but then the question said to do 2 cycles. So 2, I know how to spell. Haha. So again, if you were doing 1, 2, 3, 4, because we know that sine and cosine curves should be in quarters, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. So one cycle is going to get me to here, one cycle is going to get me to here. So then we need to find out what the period is. That's going to tell me what my scale should be. So right now, my B value, so there was one question. Pi x over 3 is the same as pi over 3x. So either way, that B value is pi over 3. And then once we know what the B value is, that helps us to find the period, which is always 2 pi over B. So we would do 2 pi over 3. We can't have a complex fraction, so we're going to times by 3. Pi's cancel out, and that tells me that one cycle will be 6. So that's going to go here. 6 would go here. 6 and 6 makes 12. And then we could divide that by 4. This is 3. I'm going to write, if you have the 6, this would be 9. So a sine curve, and it's a positive. So when you see that A is positive and it's a sine curve, that's telling you it's going to have this shape. So it's starting on the midline. So I want to start on the midline. And that's right here. And then at my next spot, I'm going up 5. So that's going to be up at 7. Back to the midline, down to my minimum, and back up. And then it just does the same thing. And then it ends up back here. There should be 5 points, and it should not look like a heart rate monitor. Curvy, and not like this. And there it is. You could check it on your calculator. I'm not going to do that for right now. So 2 curves is 1, 2. All right. Then what seemed to cause some trouble is the writing the equation. So if you're going to write an equation, and let's say that I tell you it is, I can't remember if it told you it was a sine or a cosine curve. So let's just say I'm going to give you, I have this, and I'm going to tell you this is 14, and this is 2, and I'm going to give you from here, nope, let's start here, and we're going to go like to here. So here's how much I give you. As soon as you see this right here, you should be saying to yourself, oh, hey, self, max, min, midline's falling right here. I'm not starting on the midline. That tells me it's a cosine. And because I started at the minimum, that means A has to be a negative, so less than 0. So I'm going to find the midline. So in between 14 and 2, add them up and divide by 2. So that's my midline, and that's 8. And then you could check that. It's 6 and 6, because it has to be the same. Alrighty. So now, because I know that it's starting at the minimum, really then my A value is a minus 6. So I know that my A is minus 6. I know that my midline, I think for these questions, I'm just going to keep it as this midline is at 8. And now we need to find out, oh, I need to tell you what this is. So I need to tell you, I'm going to call this pi over 2. So this is only half of a cosine curve. So we need to, so you can either finish it to figure out what that is, but if half a cosine curve is pi over 2, then one cosine curve, we have to times by 2, would be pi. So that tells me then that my period is pi, and then I would have to do p equals 2 pi over b. So if I know that that's pi, 2 pi over b, I multiply by b, I divide by pi, and that tells me that my frequency in this case would be 2. So if you don't like that option, so my answer here would be y equals negative 6 cosine, b is 2, 2x, plus my midline, plus 8. So if you wanted to keep going, like if we see a half goes to pi over 2, then to finish that would go to pi. So frequency is how many cycles would you see in 2 pi? Well, I could keep going and there would be 2 of them, and that would be fine as well. But that one seemed to be the one that caused the most trouble. And then I'm going to give you one more just for a bonus before I go outside, because my dog is at my feet ready to go out because it is super nice outside. So hopefully you didn't come on today because you're outside enjoying this lovely day. Let's say that I give you, we're going to go this much. And I'm going to tell you that this is at 20, and I'm going to tell you this is at 16. Write the equation. And this, sorry, is at the minimum. Oh, and I need to tell you what this is. I'm going to call this, I like 9 today, so we're going to go with 9. All right, so I tell you this, and I say, write me the equation. And I tell you that's either a sine or a cosine curve. So now I look at if I see that this is the maximum, I know then that this is going to be the minimum. And they didn't tell me what that is. However, I also know that this starts on the midline. So the midline is at 16. It's going up first. Starting on the midline tells me, hey, that's a sine curve. Going up first tells me that A is bigger than 0. The distance from the midline to the maximum is A. So that tells me that A is 4. Then I have to subtract 4. 16 minus 4 makes 12. So now, what I know just based off of what I have so far is that it's 4 sine. We didn't take care of that frequency yet, and the midline is at 16. Now this one I gave you, I'm going to color code for you as well today. So there's, all right, so now this is not a whole, you can't just do 2 pi over this. This is 3/4, so here's 1/4, 2/4, 3/4. So you have 2 choices. You can, like, if I were to figure out what these are, which you could do, not too bad, that's divided by 3. This would be 3, 6, 9. So you have 2 sort of things you can do. This we know keeps going. That would put me at 12. Or I know that half a sine curve looks like this. So if half of the sine curve is 6, then the whole thing is 12. Either way, that tells me that the period is 12. Period is 2 pi over b. Every time. So we want to do 12 equals 2 pi over b. We're trying to get b by itself, so we're going to multiply that. We're going to divide by 12. B equals pi over 6. So when we fill that in, we would write pi over 6x. And just to recap, that is the same as pi x over 6. Either way. So if you wanted to plug that into your calculator to check and see how we did. All right, let's see if we can see this today. So we have y equals, and I think it's 4 sine, hello, pi divided by 6. Oh my gosh, my dog is snoring. I love it. And then we're going to put in a plus 16. And then I'm going to hit mode and make sure I'm in radians. Now I am. And then I'm going to fix my window so it looks like my graph. So my graph is going from 0. I want it to go to 12. And I want my y to go from, I'm going to say 10 only because it'll show it a little bit. And I'm going to hit graph. Oh my goodness. So nice. And then how do I check? Oh, let's go look at the table, see what we got. So I said that 9 should go with 12. And there it is. I also gave you at the beginning that 0 goes with 16. Also, yes. And then 3 up at the maximum of 20. So a quick way to check. And there you are. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day.